I just saw Jaane Tu Ya Jaane Na yesterday and I rewatched it after a really long time. And I have newfound love for the movie because it's a really sweet movie. I think it was definitely pretty ahead of its time, and I do want to see more such rom-coms being made in Bollywood. And that is what today's video is going to be about, just me fangirling over the movie. We are going to break down this video into three parts, three chapters, if you may. The first one is going to be cool details that I really love about the movie, and some Easter eggs that I found, some references that I found, which are pretty similar to other movies, stuff like that. And I have notes, so I have about 21, 22-ish points for this section. The next chapter is stuff about the movie that I thought maybe they could do better, maybe it's a plot hole, but that is only about 6 points. So you can see the stark contrast. In the third section, we're going to talk about Abbas Tayarwala because he directed and wrote the movie, which is pretty cool. We are going to talk about some of the films that he has created, some of the people he has worked with, and also a little bit about produced the movie and who did the music and stuff like that. So these are our three sections for the video today. So let's dive in. Licked it. Anyway, uh, okay. So I want to start with some. I'm going to read off, a script because I really can't talk without a script. I mean, I can yap, but I need like a human in front of me to yap to. Otherwise, I just feel awkward. Cool details that I really liked about Jaane Tu Ya Jaane Na. The first one is the whole reunion storyline. I think it's so cute that that's sort of like a storytelling device that you have a group of friends and one of them is meeting Aditi and Jay for the first time. So the friends are like, hey, hum उनके प्यार की कहानी बताता है, kind of situation, which was really nice and it really helped the movie come together. I think Chalte Chalte also did something very similar with Rani Mukherjee and with Shah Rukh Khan because they have some sort of reunion, I think, with friends and they tell this really beautiful love story. But towards the interval, you see the stark contrast of, oh, these people were so in love, but then at the anniversary party, they bicker like crazy. And then I don't remember what happens at the end of the movie, but it also follows a similar storyline of, um, friends and the whole reunion, stuff like that, and the love stories. I think Student of the Year also took a similar approach to Jaane Tu Ya Jaane Na because it's the same thing again, right? The dean is in the hospital and they all have like a lovely reunion to meet him and to sort of relive the memories of what happened. I don't really remember in Student of the Year who they're telling the story to or if it's sort of like a documentary style narration of what happened. But yeah, also in terms of the whole reunion storyline and how they are actually there telling a story to I think Jignesh's new girlfriend situationship. uh, but I think around the interval everybody is like, oh, they have landed and then they're going to do customs and security and stuff like that, and Jignesh's girlfriend is very utavli to sort of like hear what happens next in the story, like as the audience is, but then everyone else is like, oh no, we want to get coffee and stuff like that, and let's get it, and don't worry, we'll tell you the story in time, which is what I believe. I don't really know when the interval of the actual film was because I saw the film on YouTube. But I think that sort of scene is very nice in terms of, hey, this is an interval, everybody's going for coffee. I think that was pretty cool. The second point that I really liked in the film is that Jay is really smart and has healthy masculinity. The way he dissolves fights in like a non-violent sort of shrewd, smart way, and he gets out of these difficult situations by just using his brains and not really punching people. I personally think it is so cool, so attractive also, but I think I would want to be Jay. I would want to, if I ever get into like a fight like situation, I would want to be the person who navigates it with ease and with smartness. I think these sort of qualities are like really cool. Unfortunately for me, I am a very confrontational person. So if I did get into like a fight with people, I guess I'm pretty honest um, about how I'm feeling, which is why I can't navigate it very shrewdly. Um, but this sort of behavior also reminds me of Jack Sparrow. Because fun fact, I when we were given an assignment in school to write about a person that you admire, a fictional character that you admire, and I chose Captain Jack Sparrow because I don't know, in that time I thought like it would be quirky or edgy, but one of the qualities of the character of Jack Sparrow I really like is that he has this unreliable narrator kind of energy, and he's able to get out of situations not necessarily by fighting, yes, by fighting sometimes, but he does recognize that he has less strength in certain situations when there are like a lot of people fighting. He doesn't want to get into that. He thinks of quick, witty ways to get out of the situation, which I think is very similar to how Jay handles things. And which is honestly something that I find really cool and I would love to incorporate in my life whenever I get into a fight. Hopefully not. But yeah. The third point, this is a cool little detail that I sort of picked up. Amar Singh Rathod and Savitri. So Jay's mom Savitri, she talks to her dead husband who is in a picture, and they have the sort of back and forth going, and the dead husband is also like animated. It really reminds me of Hum Punch because I think um oh god, have I forgotten the main character's name? Ashok Saraf. God. So Ashok Saraf's first dead wife also talks to him back and forth in the same way, and only he can talk to her. Essentially, she can't talk to anyone else. And I thought, you know, the scene was the scene was kind of derived from Hum Punch. The fourth point, I really liked. If you notice the song Pappu Can't Dance Sala, everybody is dancing in couples, right? But then I love how they subtly showed Charlene dancing with a girl, sort of implying that she's a lesbian and she's having fun with her, and then like dancing pretty close. So I love the fact how it was like subtly implied, and that's really cool actually. Again, back in the day, but I thought that that little detail was so amazing. And I think Bollywood films have come such a long way since then in terms of LGBTQ plus representation, especially since we have, I think, Cocktail 2 coming up, which has Rashmika and Kriti play a lesbian couple. And then we also had, I don't remember the name of the film, but Rajkumar Rao was a gay man, and then Bhumi Pednekar was a lesbian woman, and they, got married, and it was basically like a lavender marriage, and then they had beautiful love stories with other people. We also had the Ayushman Khurrana story with God, I don't remember his name, but then they were like a gay couple and they had their romance and stuff. And then I remember there was also a film um, with, I think, Ayushman Khurrana and Vani Kapoor, where she played a trans woman. So I think, you know, coming from, oh, subtly showing that she's a lesbian to all of these new representations in mainstream Bollywood are pretty cool actually. We've come a long way. I think this film was there in 2008. It's 2026 right now. I'm bad at math, so it's probably over 15 years, which is crazy. But yeah, I really liked that little detail. It was amazing. Okay, point number five, uh, which is again similar to the LGBTQ representation that I was talking about in um the home video that essentially plays towards the beginning of the film. You can see Aditi sort of writing gay on Jez's arm, and I like how Jez, a chill guy like that, he doesn't, take offense to that. They're all just joking. Since I would probably assume that they know that Charlene is a lesbian and she's in the group. I think that was like pretty chill of him to do, and it happens again where she jokes about जय तू लड़का ढूंढेगा खुद के लिए, and then he's like नहीं मैं लड़का ढूंढ रहा हूँ but तुम्हारे लिए. And I like how people didn't take offense to it, and I was just like joking in like a joking friendly manner, which I think is something that we do with a lot of our friends today, and I really liked that sort of candidness. Jumping on this, I also liked how when the first fight that Meow gets in to defend Jay because this guy in the canteen called him a fattu. um Jay sort of laughed and they were very friendly about it, and he was like, I had to save him from you. He says that to Meow. And I think that was like really funny and lighthearted. And it was actually, I don't know, like when we're with friends, we sort of have that dynamic. And I thought that was like very realistic, which I haven't seen in a lot of Bollywood films, I think. I can't like none no examples come to my mind. Okay, so moving on to point number six. I really like the fact that Aditi was driving Jay around everywhere. Aditi was driving her friends around. She was independent. She was the one driving the car. And I think it's such a small gesture, but Jay had pretty healthy masculinity and he didn't mind that Aditi was driving the car. But Sushant didn't really like that Aditi wanted to drive the car, especially in a scene where he was like drunk, and I think that was really bad, obviously. And Sushant did not have healthy masculinity at all. So I think it was really nice that it showed that he didn't really think it was a big deal, and it wasn't that she was like driving the car, but I don't see a lot of those subtle examples in Bollywood media. For example, I saw Tu Jhooti Main Makkar, and in it was sort of put in your face that Shraddha Kapoor is a progressive woman and she's going to drive the car and she's going to take Ranbir Kapoor on a date. But it really didn't feel that progressive because it was, you know, an in your face girl boss kind of moment where I feel like some portrayals of true feminism or true equality needs to be subtle and normalized, which I really liked in the scene where Aditi was driving. And I think another good example of that is with all of the girls in a Shraddha Kapoor movie called Love Ka the End. I think that is also one of my favorites. But I like how, the girls were driving there and it matters. These small scenes do matter. Okay, point number seven. Another stereotype. Aditi was richer than Jay. In a lot of these Bollywood tropes, I have often seen that the boy is richer than the girl. But in this case, it is the opposite, which is again a similar trope in Soti Student of the Year, where Shania is the rich one and Siddharth Malhotra's character is the poor one. But then again, that is a different dynamic because she does date Varun Dhawan's character before she ends up with Siddharth. And I don't know, he becomes like a very famous businessman and all of that. So we don't really know the timelines on that. But I think this was like a really nice um, anti stereotype. Sorry. Point number eight. Whenever the characters have intimate scenes, whether that's with Rotlu and Bombs or with Sushant and Aditi or with Meghna and Jaya, I really like how to show that they kiss, they sort of have like a ton of camera angles and they don't actually show the actors kissing. And I really like that detail because I'm old school that way. Even in terms of both intimate scenes and violence, as a filmmaker, I do believe in these sensitive scenarios. It's important to use camera tricks, especially again, like I'm going a little off track, but I do feel that films have become pretty violent nowadays, and gore is an art, but I should make a separate video about this. I mean, again, it's like, do video games actually make you violent? Sort of research in terms of film and violence and gore that is depicted in these movies. But I feel, as of now, for me as a filmmaker, if I do want to depict violence in my films, I would use, I really like the old age effects of ketchup looking sort of blood, and it's really not realistic. It just is there for depiction, and movie still goes on, the impact has been made. It's not that violent, which I really like. Again, in intimate scenes as well, I will make a separate video about that, about like my thoughts, but I really liked the camera angles and how they were very respectful of the actors. uh yeah. Point number 9. Amit, who is Aditi's brother, doesn't really like Jay and keeps on teasing him and mocking him. But again, Jay has a very healthy level of masculinity, so he brushes it off. And as a person, I think Jay is very wise. And one of those traits is that he doesn't take things personally. Aditi does. Aditi does take things personally because even when someone's being mean to Jay, she's going to pick a fight. Jay is pretty comfortable and confident in himself and his abilities. Like, कोई तुमको कुछ बोलेगा, कोई तुमको कुछ गाली देगा, तुम हो क्या? नहीं. So why are you getting affected? Kind of situation is the mindset which I think Jay has, and it's very healthy. And he's able to see that Amit is kind of struggling on stuff on his own, and he doesn't add fuel to the fire, which he's a very mature character actually, which is funny because, and I will talk about this, but considering Aditi is such a Mufat character and takes offense at everything, they kind of sort of switch because when Sushant does hit Aditi, she doesn't know what to do, and she is this fireball, and she usually gets angry at like very little things, but in that moment of weakness she doesn't really know what to do, and she tries to run away from the situation, and rightfully so. As opposed to Jay, when he starts to realize his feelings for Aditi, he kind of yells at Meghna, which is really uncalled for. Yes, he's frustrated because Sushant just kissed Aditi in front of him, but it really wasn't Meghna's fault. And I feel like we didn't see the parts where maybe they felt frustrated in their relationship. But the stark contrast of him being so nice and patient with Amit, even though Amit was going through something, and him not really showing that patience to Meghna. He did kind of show it to her afterwards when Meghna did admit that, because of my parents, I am this way. Aditi was really angry about Amit's behavior, and Jay became angry with Meghna's behavior. And I feel like they sort of switched lenses at one point, and they sort of saw each other's perspectives in that sense. Again, when Jay also punched Sushant. So he was obviously very angry and behaved like Aditi. But I will elaborate on that more because I have written this down somewhere. Yes. The 10th point, whenever Amit and Aditi chase each other, they're punching each other and play fighting and all of that, it really does feel like a direct reference to Tom and Jerry sequences where there's lovely piano background music playing, and it felt very Tom and Jerry cartoony. Okay, point number 11. Aditi, when she's frustrated about Amit, she mentions to Jay that she thinks that Amit needs a psychiatrist, where Jay mentions that he thinks that Amit is really smart and he sort of is very wise and understands what Amit is trying to go through, and realizes that all Amit needs is a little bit more affection. I I do think that Aditi, when she mentions that Amit needs a psychiatrist, she doesn't do it out of a mocking tone. She does it out of, genuine concern and frustration for her brother, which I think is really healthy. I felt it was kind of nice that they dropped this mental health reference so casually in a movie in 2008, which I think, again, was pretty ahead for its time. Um, and also, Peachy and Pumpkin sort of realized that, who were Aditi and Amit's parents, they sort of realized that Amit did need the space to explore himself. They never invaded his privacy, even though Amit was clearly going through a rough time. I would imagine behind the scenes, they were parents who were giving Amit the time to process his feelings because it is hard being a young adult in the world in general. And I loved that they were parents who gave, um, that much time to their kids because I don't think, again, we see that much representation, especially in Indian media. It's usually "तू बदतमीजी करेगा दो तो पढ़ खा" kind of situation, which is really not nice. So I really like the sort of subtle mentions of the mental health challenges that these people face. Yeah, it is so hard. I yap sometimes. Oh gosh, this hurts. Anyway, we have come to point number 12. Throughout their character developments, Aditi and Jay sort of switch personalities at one point. They don't completely switch personalities, and the contrast isn't as stark as, let's say, in Jab We Met, where Geet and Aditya completely switch personalities. Geet becomes depressed like Aditya was, and Aditya does become very positive like Geet once was. That was a very not so subtle shift in their characters, but I feel in the situation in Jaane To Ya Jaane Na, it was a little more subtle. Jay didn't lose that soft side of himself, but that he sort of realized Aditi's point of view and the stuff that she did, and selectively he took the better parts of her and applied it to his own personality, but he still didn't lose his softness. For Aditi, I would say initially, you know, for Aditi, it was like an all or nothing situation. She was very Mofat. She was very honest. Jay not necessarily was. He was pretty non confrontational in a lot of things and he was like mature and wise. Aditi really was not. And I think as the movie progresses, she takes those mature and wise parts of Jay because initially she is very jealous of Meghna. She shows up on their dates. She picks a fight with Jay because she's feeling alone and Jay doesn't want to spend any time with her. But she does show maturity later because even when she finds out that Jay does love her, because Meghna mentions that they've broken up, she sort of, even before that, even before those scenes, she sort of has a slow, subtle maturity in terms of, hey, maybe I shouldn't trouble Jay so much with my feelings necessarily. So I think, that wise, mature part of Jay is something that she took. And again, like throughout the movie, they sort of ended up balancing each other out because Aditi sort of realized, especially with her fascination with Sushant, she sort of realized towards the end that violence is not always the answer, and just sort of realized that in certain scenarios, violence is the answer. Um, and they sort of helped each other balance each other out, essentially. Okay, point number 13. This is something that I saw on Instagram. I don't remember the content creator, but she essentially did a video on Meghna, on how Meghna is the ultimate manic pixie dream girl and how they took that trope and broke it down to show her humanity, which I completely agree with. And that video was essentially the reason why I decided to watch Jani Tuya Jani Na yesterday, because I hadn't thought of it from that angle, essentially, because the Instagram creator is right. Meghna is depicted as a manic pixie dream girl. She's there to, make the hero fall in love with her, love at first sight, and everything. She plays silly games like, what's this? To alter her world view. And then later we sort of realized that she had to do that to cope with the harsh reality of her parents' failed marriage. And she had to do that in order to believe in love. And she does mention that to Jay. Uh, I think it's very beautiful that they showed, the humanity behind the character, uh, and they didn't make her into the stereotypical "I will save the hero" kind of girl. It was really human and beautiful. Point number 14. I think one thing that directly relates to point number 12 is when Aditi sort of realized that, hey, she wanted a man who would, um, be a man and save her from other people. But I think what she sort of realized along the way is that he, the sort of mentality, like he will protect me, he will beat up people who are mean to me. If he does that to everyone, he's going to do it to you too eventually, which is something that you need to take care of, especially in relationships. And that's something that she learned the hard way, unfortunately. In contrast to Jay, because Jay was sweet to almost everyone. Yes, he did have his moments of frustration, but he was pretty much consistent and sweet, uh, to all of his friends, to all of his family. And they sort of debunked that whole trope of, oh, he's mean to everyone but me. So that's such a cool, um, like dark romance kind of situation. But it really shows you the other side of that trope where, you know, the romance is kind of there, but the dark would also be inflicted on you, which is really not the best case scenario. And I think I really liked the way they debunked that trope. And I really like, in general, it's very realistic to say that a boy or a girl who is nice to everyone would also be nice to their partner is a good way to go about it. Point number 15. Amit and Aditi's relationship, uh, once they started getting closer, it was very beautiful. I loved the way that Amit sort of explained the difference very poetically and helped her realize that she was such an extrovert and he was an introvert. He didn't have a lot of friends growing up together, and he sort of helped her realize very subtly that he does miss her. And things don't change so much in the movie because cut to the next scene immediately, Aditi is trying to call Jay and to figure out what's happening in his life. And I think that is like a character flaw on Aditi's part, that even though Amit is like trying to explain to her in a very gentle manner what has happened, she does realize it in the moment, but it takes her time to make concrete actions to rebuild that relationship again with Amit. And I think credit where credit is due, Amit as a character also does try to reach out to Aditi once again by showing her his artwork, and there's more on that point later. But I think there is like a lot of great effort from Amit as well to get his friend back. Okay, point number 16. At the end of the film, we have an airport sequence, and like a lot of other Bollywood films, a lot of the airport sequences are portrayed as unrealistic. And again, um, at the beginning of the film, Jignesh's girlfriend essentially says that, all of these running to the airport to stop my love tropes are so ridiculous, like someone's going to shoot you down. And it is a very semi realistic airport sequence where Jay does run to find Aditi. and there are people chasing him, and it is comedic in a way, not entirely realistic. I mean, yes, he would have been shot down at one point, but like the inspector says, he was also very confused about what's happening because Jess started singing weird songs. Uh, um, but I would say that it was semi-realistic and it did debunk the trope. But I think two pieces of media have taken heavy inspiration from the scene and have tried to make it as realistic as possible. The first one is in Four More Shots Please, where Siddhi runs to Mihu Pihu, who is running in the airport, um, and she tries to stop him. So her friends essentially book the cheapest flight they can find just so that she has a ticket to get to the airport with her passport and everything, which I think is a very smart and realistic choice if you actually do want to go and stop someone at the airport. And initially they do also discuss, hey, can you just like shoot him a text? And then the rest of them are like, no, it'll be romantic, go stop him, and you have like a lot of money anyway, so why not just waste it on a ticket? And something that I really do like in that situation is, I think I don't really remember what happens in that episode, is that Mihir does go to wherever his destination was. He doesn't leave his flight because obviously money, and he had to go there. But at least they have some sort of reconciliation and a moment where, hey, you know, it's fine, we're together now, we're going to come back to each other, which I think Aditi and Jay didn't have. I will discuss it more in the points of the movie that I didn't like. But to summarize, Aditi was going to New York and was going to apply to New York Film School. I think she should have gone. Like Jay should have waited for her and she should have made her flight. She shouldn't have come out of the airport because, again, money. Anyway, the second film that sort of draws inspiration from this airport sequence is in Tu Jhooti Main Makkar, where Ranveer's character, their entire family also books him a really cheap flight to get into the airport to reach Shraddha Kapoor's character. So that whole airport sequence is again pretty realistic because I think everybody's just found this loophole. How book a cheap flight and get into the airport, which is wild, but it is realistic, I would say. So, for all you romantics out there, that is always an option if you have money. And uh, in Tu Choti Memakar, though, this is again a segue, but the whole family essentially goes down on their knee and proposes to Shraddha Kapoor. Like the Ranbir Kapoor's entire family proposes to Shraddha Kapoor at the airport, which is wild if you ask me, and pretty much low key joint family propaganda. But I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this movie. If you want me to do a review, let me know. Uh, but yeah. Point number 17. Ugh, another aspect? No. Another element where we have healthy masculinity when Amit is trying to find his mouse, Fufi. Yes, so he says, Fufi baby, come to mommy instead of come to daddy. I think that is so sweet. That is, again, gender is a social construct. Um, I really like that. It was nice. I really like that. And it was really funny when Amit was like, hey, come to mommy. And then Jay was, hey, come to daddy. And I don't know, it was like cute. I like it. Again, healthy masculinity. Love that. Uh, so coming to point number 18, which is all of the males, most of the males in Aditi's friend group do have healthy masculinity. Like I said, Amit has healthy masculinity. Jay, of course, really healthy masculinity. Even Rotlu, to a certain point, because he doesn't become into that heartbroken divana ashik kind of situation, and he doesn't really hurt Aditi, even though Aditi does not reciprocate his feelings. So again, good example of healthy masculinity. Even I'm kind of conflicted about this, but the guy Aditi gets in a fight with, he sort of is at the party during the Pappu Khan dance scene, and both of them are having like a nice time. They're sort of like laughing about the fight that they had, and I would assume that he's apologized and she's apologized. So again, if you do something wrong, apologize. Healthy masculinity, right there. Okay, yeah. Point number 19. This is going to be kind of like a long point. Amit is very sweet to Sushant when he does come to meet the family, which I think was pretty interesting given that he didn't really like Jay and all of a sudden he likes Sushant. The trope here is essentially when the hero or the heroine tries to be more closer to their love interest by, showing an interest in the younger siblings or showing an interest in the family members, especially, and trying to like infiltrate through that. Because again, in like Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge, Shah Rukh Khan is like, oh, I need to be all goody two shoes with the family members so that they can fall in love with me and they'd let me marry the love of my life, which is again similar to what happens in Partner, where Salman Khan tries to win over Lara Datta's son so that they can end up in a relationship together. And it's only when the son gives them the approval, she's like, oh, my son likes this guy, so he must be a good guy, so I should marry. So Lara Datta marries Salman Khan's character. In this one, it was sort of going in that direction. Like, oh my gosh, Amit does not like anyone, and Amit likes Sushant. He was open enough to show Sushant his creations, and I think it's so beautiful the way it's flipped because Sushant is the one person who he does not like at all, to the point where he does not give a fuck about what Sushant thinks or what his opinions are. And that is why he is able to show his paintings to him, because he's scared of judgment. He doesn't show them to Aditi or his parents initially because he necessarily is very private about it, and he doesn't believe that they would sort of understand his art or they would criticize it, or he really values their opinions. But Sushant's opinions, he doesn't really give a fuck about them. When Sushant leaves, Amit wants to talk to Aditi, and I think it was a way of him to build trust with Aditi that he showed her his paintings. It was like he was opening up his heart to her, and essentially because he does not like Sushant, he thinks it's a big mistake that she's doing. But in order to tell that to Aditi, he had to be very emotionally vulnerable, and he also realized that he needed to show a sign of trust, and that's why he showed his art. Because if he probably didn't do that, Aditi would think that Amit was trying to sabotage her relationship with Sushant, which I think is why the scene works in general. Again, uh, coming to Aditi and Amit's relationship, this is point number 20. Um, it reminds me of the Barbie movie, The Island Princess. There's a princess who gets washed up on an island when she's really young and she's raised by these wonderful animals. One of her best friends is Tika. So, the island princess, Ro, she gets an opportunity to confess her feelings for the prince that she does fall in love with, and the prince also loves her. Tika comes in the way, something happens. So Tika is the elephant. She sort of realizes that Ro loves the prince and the prince also loves her, and she creates some miscommunications between them. And they sort of sail away, and Ro is pretty heartbroken. After Tika essentially tells that to Ro, Ro doesn't get necessarily upset. She's trying to understand where Tika is coming from. And she sings a very beautiful song to explain that even though someone comes in your life, it doesn't mean that that love is going to go away from that person, which is sort of what I think Amitan was Amit's insecurity with Aditi's relationship with Jay. He always felt that Jay was stealing his love. But in The Island Princess, it's pretty beautifully demonstrated that even if new people come into your life, the love does not diminish. Love is unlimited, it grows. And the song goes something like, love knows, love grows bigger than before. In your heart, there's always more. And I think I relate with the song quite a bit. Because this is something I personally struggle with, and I think the whole concept is really beautiful. Like, you have love for everybody in your life, your friends, family, your loved ones, and it does not reduce. In fact, it just keeps on multiplying, which I think is such a beautiful concept. And I think the sort of scene with Amita and Aditi's relationship reminded me of the Island Princess. Okay, so point number 21, this movie sort of had the opposites attract kind of trope, which is very similar to what happens with Geet and Aditya and Jab We Met. Both of them, again, like both of these tropes, Geet had a boyfriend, Aditya's girlfriend dumped him, and uh, in sort of Jaane Tu Ya Jaane Na, Aditya got a boyfriend, Jai got a girlfriend, and then both of them got their ideal partners who they wanted. And I think sort of like the message is that even though you do find someone who is your ideal type, you probably might be surprised and by why, especially in Jane To Ya Jane Na, why you're attracted to someone who is the complete opposite to you. Like, you guys really have nothing in common, which is what happened with Jay and Aditi initially. But I think the sort of main message is it doesn't matter if you guys are very similar in personality or you're very different in your personality. What matters is that you have a really strong foundation of friendship, which both of them did not have in their other relationships. And the second thing that is important is that you truly understand each other, which Jay did try to understand Meghna, but after a point he could not understand her. And Aditi did try to understand Sushant, but again, after a point, she could not understand why he was the way that he was. But in contrast, Jay always knew that Aditi was Mufat, was always, uh, like a angry young lady, and Aditi always sort of knew that Jay and Jay understood why Aditi was always so angry, but Aditi could never understand Jay's non-violent side, essentially. But as the movie sort of went forward, their characters were able to understand each other a lot better, which I feel is the most important thing for, the characters' relationship. Point number 22 is sort of carrying on that same idea. Again, like I said, Jay could not understand Meghna after a point, and Meghna also could not understand Jay. She could not understand why he was not like letting her be. Aditi tried to understand Sushant, but she couldn't understand why he was behaving so weirdly. She was trying to be open with whatever lifestyle he had, but I feel eventually she could see that things were going wrong, but she couldn't get out of that situation because she thought that was something that she wanted, and she realized after the slap incident that was really not what she wanted. Um, I think another detail that proves Sushant's hypocrisy is that Aditi was not really sure about her feelings with Jen. She was pretty open and honest about it, that she didn't really know what, you know, she was feeling, and she didn't really like act on it. She was trying to be mature and giving Jay space, all of that. But while that was happening, Sushant was actively hanging out with his exes. There was like a really weird dynamic going on there, which Aditi did notice, but she essentially said कि दोस्त है दोस्तों की अपनी जगह होती है. She was trying to equate it with her stuff with Jay. But I also think the whole reason why Sushant was really upset with Aditi in that moment, when she did admit that she kind of liked Jay, maybe was because he was sort of projecting his own insecurities onto her, considering he kept on replaying that conversation because he thought he because in his mind he's like, I'm hanging out with so many girlfriends and all of that, but she isn't, but maybe she is like me anyway. So he was kind of like projecting his own stuff onto her, which I think was very unfair, and that was pretty much why that whole thing happened. And yes, he was, granted, he was a jerk, but also this is probably what was going on in his mind too, which is again very weird but hypocritical, which is, a really nice complex detail that I like about the film. Coming to chapter 2, stuff that I didn't like about the film. It could be loopholes, stuff that happened that really wasn't addressed, stuff that could have been done better in terms of plot, is something that we would be discussing. Point number one, Rotlu and Bombs only got together because they were lonely, because Rotlu really liked Aditi and Bombs really liked Che. And that was quite literally the only reason why they got together. Other films that have done this trope well are Aisha and Dil To Pagal Hai. In Aisha, I think Pinky and Randhir get together because they do have something in common. Plus, they were lonely. Being lonely wasn't the only sort of reason, and that's how they sort of fell in love, because they also had something in common, and because the film sort of did show them bonding, as opposed to in Jaane To Ya Jaane Na, where they were just like, "Hey, we're lonely. You wanna, be my girlfriend?" That could have been dealt with better, is what I feel, because we don't really see their love story. But then again, I guess it I don't know. I guess it was probably because the story centered more on Aditi and Jay's love story instead of Rotlu and Bombs. But I do feel that, maybe like even a small change would have been better to show that they actually did love each other. And that's why I also like in Dil To Pagal Hai, when Karishma Kapoor and Akshay Kumar sort of introduce each other towards the end, it's implied that they would end up together, but at that stage they're just like getting to know each other. But the audience is reassured that, hey, they will also find that person, and they will also find love, and things would work out between them. But again, it's implied. It makes the audience imagine their sort of journey, which I think in these two films it is well done, and it should have been done better in this film as well. Point number two, राठौर घराने की मर्द बनने की शर्तें, the तीन शर्तें, I felt like it could have been dealt with better, especially since this movie was so much about, positive masculinity. um I felt that the way they could have said that it was important for Jay to do these sharte to become like a mard, I think it could have been expressed a lot better. Like, yes, किसी के ऊपर हाथ उठाना या उसको पेल देना, that in context of protecting someone or doing it for the right reason would have been pretty beneficial. Because coming to another, like, point number 6, I would elaborate on that more. But I, I just feel like they could have mentioned that better instead of making it like a very filmy mirth thing, especially since they were doing so well with the positive masculinity in this film. And having that kind of threw the tone off a bit for me personally. Point number 3, I get that this is a coming of age movie and I get that this is a romance movie, but they should have focused more on their individual passions as well, and their jobs and stuff like that. Again, coming back to the airport scene that I did like in the movie, I did not like the fact that Aditi did leave her chance to go to New York and went back home with Jay. She was gonna come back in 3 weeks anyway, right? Like, stuff could have happened. She could have had her dream. I don't know if she goes to film school or no. I don't know if Jay gets a marketing job. I really don't know what the other characters do for work, which I think is such a big plot hole. And I feel like they could have at least mentioned it, because, again, I feel like maybe they should have mentioned something about their careers or their individual passions instead of just focusing on the romantic aspect of it. I feel like they should have said something. Anyway, uh, so the point number 4 is the whole लकड़ी लड़का और लड़की कभी दोस्त नहीं हो सकते kind of situation. um okay, for me personally, I do really like the concept of pyar dosti hai, because as I mentioned in the parts of the film that I did like, I really liked how, initially Jay and Aditi had like a really good foundation of friendship, which they didn't have in their other two relationships. But that is exactly why their relationship worked, because they had like a good solid foundation of friendship. The only issue I have is it is kind of similar to Kuch Kuch Hota Hai in terms of, where Shah Rukh Khan says Pyar Dosti Hai, and he does end up with Anjali in the end. But the thing is, in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, it only ends up with Anjali because Tina dies, because he really did love her. I don't think they had problems in their marriage. I do understand in this film it's a very beautiful representation of friends to lovers. I think it is much better in terms of Kuch Kuch Hota Hai to show the the gradual friends to lovers sort of pipeline, and I think this movie does it so much better than um Love Breakup Zindagi 2, which was like another movie. A bit, there they have sort of like an enemies to friends to lovers pipeline, but the friends to lovers is done really good in this movie actually, which I do appreciate. But at the same time, I know this movie is really not a good example, or like it's not really like a good point to make for this movie specifically, but in general I would like to see movies where mainstream movies where the the girl and the boy are actually platonic friends, to sort of debunk the ladka or ladki dost nahi ho sakte kind of situation. But I do understand in this film it was like kind of complicated, because initially it was that trope. It was ladka or lakdi. Why do I keep saying lakdi? Ladka or ladki sirf dost ho sakte hai, which was essentially what Aditi and Jay felt for each other. Like, oh my gosh, I can never get married to you. I can never get married to you. And they did have like a friendly relationship, and it did take them time to sort of realize that. And I feel like they also grew as people, and that they realized that hey, they were meant for each other. But again, in general, I would like to have a trope of them being friends, all platonic, just because we don't have enough representation of that in media. Let's go to point number 5, which is Jazz Brothers, the Bhalu and Bagheera. Here's the thing. Firstly, I really like the detail that they are Jungle Book characters from Mowgli, Bhalu and Bagheera. Very cute. The thing is, yes, I understand that, which brings me back to, the whole second point where मर्द बनने की तीन शर्तें. I get that they're Jazz brothers. I get the situation they were in and the teen sharte that they had to complete in order to, get in jail and all of that. I understand that it was like necessary for the plot to have them, because if they weren't there, Jay would never meet Meghna, and um, also with the whole situation with Sushant and Richa at the party where Sushant punches those two brothers. I get why that was necessary for the plot, but I would have really liked if they made them separate characters who were actually bad and not redeemable. Because again, coming back to the point where मर्द बनने की तीन शर्तें, तुम literally लड़कियों को छेड़ रहे हो to get into jail, and that's kind of played off as a haha kind of funny moment. It's really not. Honestly, they could have done something else like chori chakari daketi, or like I don't know, like if they did really want to end up in jail, why not do the right thing, punch someone who is like being mean to a girl, or like do something else to get into jail. Like, why do you have to harass girls to get into jail? Like, if you did want to fulfill that condition, like do something else, I don't know, like be like Robin Hood or something. Loot a rich person's house and give it to like the garib people. Or this is becoming very Tismar Khan by the moment, but uh, I really didn't like the fact that it was kind of brushed off and not really addressed in the movie. Yeah, I didn't like it at all. Anyway, the sixth point, this is kind of confusing for me, uh, but when it's Aditi's birthday and Jed does go to see Aditi, and she sort of explains to him, hey, we used to hang out because we used to like hanging out with each other. It's not a formality, it's not an obligation. Don't do this. And then she kind of gets upset and sleeps on the bed. Uh, In that scene, Jed sort of gets up and he notices like a gift fallen to the ground, and then that's sort of shown as like a really emotional moment, but I feel like there's probably some behind the scenes footage or like some deleted cuts that we don't get to see because I don't know, do you guys know why it was portrayed as such an important moment? Because I couldn't put two and two together, what he sort of realized in that moment, and I couldn't really assess his emotions, or I couldn't really analyze that scene very well. So I guess that's my bad, and kind of like a question mark on that whole scene in general. I don't really know. It's like a plot hole essentially. Three, we have in chapter number three, we're going to be talking about Abbas Tayarwala, who has written and directed this movie. Kudos to him. I looked at some of his filmography and I found out that he was actually one of the writers for Mehuna, and he was like a script writer. He has also written dialogues for War and Pathan. He has also written dialogues for Bang Bang, and he has also written dialogues for Salam Namaste. That is pretty cool, and that is like a really great filmography for him. He's also like a songwriter. He has written lyrics for Jaane Tu Ya Jaane Na, and he has also written lyrics for he has also written like a lot of songs for Munna Bhai MBBS, which is pretty cool. Here's a fun fact. Siddharth Anand has also worked on Salam Namaste, War and Pathan. I am not sure if he has worked on Bang Bang or no. I will check that. But he, because Siddharth Anand also wrote dialogues and the script and screenplay for Salam Namaste, War Pathan, maybe Bang Bang, I'm not sure. And considering Abbas Tayarwala also wrote dialogues for Bang Bang, Salam Namaste, and Pathan, and also for War, I think. Definitely. So I think these two are kind of friends. What do you guys think? I think they're friends, and I think they are sort of working together really well because I did not know about, you know, these people. They have game because they're making like really cool films and like well-known films, and it's nice to see make the connections and see like the same familiar names again and again, especially in terms of writing, because not a lot of people talk about writing even though they do talk about direction. Another cool fun fact, Jaane Tu Ya Jaane Na was made by Amar Khan Productions. He actually came in, and which is again pretty cool. And I think because of Jaane Tu Ya Jaane Na, I'm not sure, but maybe because of Jaane Tu Ya Jaane Na, Imran Khan got an opportunity in Delhi Belly, which was this dark satirical comedy, which was also produced by Amar Khan. Maybe Jaane Tu Ya Jaane Na was like a stepping stone for that. One really cool thing that I did find out was the music was composed by A.R. Rahman, which is a huge deal considering that the cast was pretty fresh, and Abbas Tayarwala wanted really fresh faces. Nobody was that well known back then, at least. I think it is pretty crazy that A.R. Rahman did do the songs for the film. Also, maybe since it was Amir Khan Productions, Salman Khan's brother Sohail and Arbaz did do the cameos for the film. They were Balu and Bagheera. Maybe this is this is essentially how I'm trying to link uh, people in Bollywood, uh, especially when they have worked on these films. Um, and yeah, I think this was a really fun movie, and it's going to be one of my favorites coming. Uh, One of my favorite rom-coms, definitely for sure. And I do have newfound appreciation and love for this movie after seeing it last night. Considering I did do like a 1 hour sort of review of the film. And if you like stuff like this, keep following my channel, like, share, and subscribe. And I will be coming out with new videos soon about films and their analysis in general. And I also do want to keep making review videos about my quick scripts plays, or other stuff, maybe like the movies I'm doing and stuff like that. So definitely stay tuned for that. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun, and let me know if this makes you feel like you want to watch Jaane Tu Ya Jaane Na again. So yeah, bye bye.